Hello everyone, this is Charlotte and this is a podcast called Chatting in Cars. That's where I talk about stuff on the way to work, usually by shouting. Sometimes my microphone cuts out and I've realised I've just wasted entire podcasts, which I've done a couple of times now, so hopefully not today. It's Thursday, so I'm exhausted. I don't know about you guys, probably if you're working or if you're going through some kind of life stress. So I'm hoping you have a good day, even though, life is generally sometimes a bit shit. Or maybe that's just my energy level right now. There is a disclaimer at the start of this podcast because I do swear and I do talk about sensitive topics. So if you don't want to hear that, absolutely, it's up to you to change the channel. I can't do it for you because I'm not physically there. I've developed some kind of AI system through the internet where I can just block off your life choices. Hopefully you have a good day though, regardless. So, today is Thursday. My topic for today is, I'm just looking at my list, I'm going to go through for authenticity. I think I've got about 10 listed there out of my little baggie on a post-it note, so I'm going for authenticity. No, I did do a podcast yesterday about, what is reality, if you bothered to listen to it. I know I'm just doing it because I ramble a lot. Oh, look, a French pug. And I do talk about random topics, so it does start with one and end with another. Authenticity to me is being the real you. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with being the real you. We are encouraged to be us because generally we've got to live with us, I would assume. If you've listened to the other podcasts as well, you'll know I have a severe hatred of celebrity because of the fakeness. So I'm just watching a bus turn a corner really badly, taking its time. I do encourage authenticity because I've been through the whole phase of trying to people please people where you have to completely destroy yourself just to fit in or make someone else happy. I mean, when I was married, I was completely deconstructed from who I was. I never really had any kind of sense of identity because I'd gone from people pleasing my parents to people pleasing my now ex-husband. By the time I got to my ex-boyfriend, I was not giving myself up for anyone. Which he found shocking because he constantly criticized me. And in the end I left him because I'm like, look dude, I've done this for 16 years with an asshole before, I'm not doing it with another fuck up. So I left him. I'm like, fuck you. At that point you really start to understand the value of authenticity because you are you. You are what you make yourself to be. You could take that in a negative way and make yourself some kind of really fake person who doesn't live up to their authenticity. Christ, how do you know I'm tired? My mutism's kicking in. If you hear me stuttering, I'm so sorry. I really am tired at this point. I don't know, it's annoying because it annoys me when I do it. What can we talk about authenticity? What is the value of authenticity? It's like, what is the point of keeping it real if you exist in a reality where nothing is real? If you're looking at a bunch of people that fake their entire existence on Instagram or Facebook or shit like that, or in the media and celebrity status, and they actually seem to benefit themselves by being fake, I do question that myself. That leads a lot of my existential crises these days. I mean, being over 30 isn't just a case of feeling like you're behind and tired and you can't seem to get anywhere because everyone else is doing better than you. It's not just that existential crisis I have periodically. It's also a case of why am I being my authentic self when I can just fake it and get ahead, because you got to own yourself essentially. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to live with yourself and the decisions you've made. If you are willing to commit to an not noble cause, such as pursuing just fame and wealth and for no real reason, just for the sake of stroking your ego, you're going to hate yourself at the end of the day. I find like a lot of celebrities these days are hating themselves because they bought into the machine the idea that celebrity will make them happy, wealth will make them happy, and in the end you can't buy real affection, you can't buy real love. You can buy temporary love, and to be honest that's more like prostitution than actual love. That's just convenience really. I mean, these people that marry into money thinking it will make them happy, it's like because their life is slightly easier financially. But you could be married to a real asshole who doesn't love you, and now you're squared away in this horrible circumstance where you can't really leave because maybe they were smart enough to make you sign a prenup. Whereas if you do leave, you leave with nothing. I don't blame rich people for doing that. I know there are people that are opportunists out there that are looking for people to, milk. It's like, I gave you kids, you give me money. It's like, no. You had kids because you wanted to have kids. I don't agree with you having to, no, I just don't. It pisses me off. Anyway, there's a lot of different ways people can exploit each other in situations like that, romantically or relationship-wise. I'm getting more and more cynical about this situation. I probably shouldn't because I'm a romantic, but that's horrible, isn't it? You're sitting there romanticizing all these relationships, and it's like, oh, and the reality of the situation is there's bastards out there that will exploit you for all your shit. How can you tell I'm divorced? All right, let's get on with it, because this is getting really fucking dark and negative. All right, so authenticity. What's the value in it? Knowing that you've created yourself, knowing that you've contributed to your own sense of identity. That's the real shitter. Oh, I say shitter. The real good thing. Yeah, we're using shit in a different context here. Anyway, I could probably think of a better word for that. But, at 30, what am I, like 37 now? I'm 38 in May. May 3rd. I got The Rock's birthday. I'm stoked about that. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, same birthday. Awesome. Anyway, but it's like looking at myself self-made now. I know that all my work and everything I've put into making myself has come from, it might have been only in the last couple of years that I've really kicked off into authenticity, because I divorced my husband, 4 years ago, finalized or whatever. I wasn't myself while I was with him. I was what he wanted me to be. I was people-pleasing because I was conditioned to do it as a kid to avoid violence. I walked into an abusive marriage because of it, thanks to my parents setting me up for a fall there, because I was told that compliance meant love. Compliance meant commitment. It doesn't, because you just kowtowing down to someone who's potentially abusive. I mean, to a certain degree, if you love someone, you should be trying to make them happy, yes, but not to the extent where you're losing yourself to make them happy. I completely lost my identity and all sense of self when I started dating my ex-husband, and when I finally married him. He was a overt narc. My ex-boyfriend was a covert narc. My overt narc is the one where they're flashy and showy-offy, and he was a muscle guy, and his narcissism really kicked in when he could show off all his muscles, and everyone was looking at him like, oh wow, isn't this? And you sit there and think, I know what you're like at home. I don't know why you're doing this. But he customized me into what he thought I should be, and what he thought I was or should be was someone who wasn't a threat to his ego. Now, I've got an extensive education. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I put the fucking effort in and I got the degrees. I put in the effort when, people around me were more interested in getting shit-faced and laid. I went to school, I went to uni, and I did the work, and so I've got a decent paycheck. I only used one of my degrees, but I got 5. I did the others out of interest. And one day they might come in handy if I want to, go up to the higher echelons of whatever my career is. But right now I'm just happy with that one degree because it's getting me a paycheck, which is needed. Very much needed right now. And there's readily jobs available with that one degree. So it works for me at this point. When more jobs open up, I might be looking to use the other ones. But he found that to be a threat because he's never finished anything in his life. And here I was, when we were married, I had a full-time job. I was educated. I was generally a happy person. I didn't feel compelled to show off to anyone. I'm not about, putting myself first. I was more interested in getting the job done and going through service and stuff like that. I was happy as long as he was happy, and I needed him for some kind of, self-esteem and validation, even though he breadcrumbed any kind of attention to me. At one point he says, and one of the things that stick in my mind are the most bullshit things, like, I'll pencil you in. That phrase sticks in me. Because at the point, I was his wife, and I'd been his wife for about 6 years there. And we'd been together 16 years. You don't just pencil fucking someone in when you've been married to or with them for 16 years. Like, I'll pencil you in. You're an option. Fuck it. That shit really stuck with me. It showed a complete lack of consideration for me because he just didn't care. I was just something he could do if he was bored enough or had the effort or the energy. I just don't care anymore. Even though I'd stuck by him and I'd fucking worshipped this prick for 16 years, I was now an option. If he felt like it, he might spend time with me. Fuck it. It's like, how do you know your marriage is failing? It's like, wait a minute. You're supposed to like me. I've done all this shit for you. I've been constantly stroking your ego and boosting you up. And to be honest, maybe I created a false economy when I did that. I don't know. I think he's facing the reality of the fact that he's not that particularly great now. Considering I just got a text message from the bank saying his money's just bounced. So I'm like, which is a bit sad. But these small victories, they make our day. Particularly when someone's been horrible to you, isn't it? Slightly petty, but you know, you got to take your wins when you can. No, it was funny though, because I thought I'd been scammed. I thought someone had got into my bank account, and you know, they sent me this text saying this payment had been bounced essentially, and you couldn't, like, he'd maxed out his account or something like that. And I thought, oh shit, okay. I didn't realize it would have been connected to him. He has my phone number on his bank account. Yeah, I know, it's weird. I don't know why. Unless he's trying to do identity theft or some shit, I don't know. Which is why I sent it to the scam people. I'm like, someone's trying to use my phone number for this. Turns out it was a legit text from the bank saying he bounced it. So it wasn't a scam, it was just him being a dickhead. But I laughed. Because he was horrible when I was married to him. And I was like, a little bit of karma there. A little perk to the day. I know, it's sad, isn't it? Is it? We should all be grown-ups now, mature adults. Yeah, anyway. If you've listened to the other podcast, you'll know the history I've had with him. So it's like, you'll probably be on my side at this point. But he completely customized me. He made me into this thing that wasn't a threat to his ego and wouldn't leave because he trauma bonded me into staying and people pleasing and played on my insecurities. And when I started to feel the relationship falling, and I did, subtly, it was starting to fall apart. He wanted separate accounts. He wanted to sleep in a different room. He wanted to, you know, he wanted separate holidays. He wanted to spend more time alone, which ultimately translated to he wanted to spend some more time alone away from me with someone else. So I found the room bookings on the credit card and shit like that. I found all that. And I couldn't understand why. I didn't think I was that horrible a person when I was married to him. I don't know. But it started, well, obviously, it might have been a case of just he fancied someone else and so I became the villain. I don't know. It happens sometimes. Because nothing had changed from my side of the fence since we had started dating at 17, because he had customized me to be what he wanted right from the get-go. When I was young and flexible and, you know, malleable, he'd started telling me this is what you're going to be, and started manipulating me into being this non-threat that would follow him around and stroke his ego. And at 17, it's really easy to do because you don't know anybody, you haven't got the experience. You don't know how to stand up for yourself really, because you're impressed that anyone will look at you. He was like, a boy's looking at me, oh my God. What do they want? Well, apparently they want to completely control and manipulate you into doing their bidding. Wow, that's like the devil. I've met the devil. He's a 6'2" South African. But apparently that's a cultural thing as well, because I've looked at South African culture and they do that to women. They like women to be submissive. And I'm sitting there going, well, I come from Irish stock, so I don't know if you can get that. But, you know, I finally broke that curse and left him. So when I actually got out of there, my sense of creating myself as to what I wanted to be and who I really was, I tried to find what was real to me. And that's how I know, you're going to scoff, but that's how I ended up looking at tarot cards and stuff like that. Because I was looking for a sense of self. And it gives you a guideline. Even if you're looking at your birth chart and you look at the horoscopes and things like that and you go, well, this is absolute bullshit. At least it gives you something to work off. It gives you an idea or just about, some things might resonate. I mean, it's not gospel, obviously. It's all interpretation and art form, essentially. But it gives you something to work off. I mean, if you look at your birth chart, you'll find your North Node. Your North Node is what you're meant to be doing in this life. This life. The next one I can't tell you about, I don't know. But it also reflects what you were doing in your last life. Your South Node is what you were doing in your last life. Like, I'm a Scorpio South Node. I was too emotional with my decisions to the extent where it overruled any kind of logic. So now I'm a Taurus North Node and I have to be more logical and sort my shit out without going emotionally berserk. Which is funny considering my parents raised me to be a berserker. So I don't know how the fuck I'm supposed to do that, but you know, that's the theory, right? If you want to go into that side of things. But logically speaking, given my upbringing, I should be more stable. I should be aiming to be more stable. So even if you're not looking at it from an esoteric side of things, logically speaking, I should be trying to mediate what the experiences are that I've been through and create some kind of stability. It should be that way. Just as a human being, it's like you don't want to take that shit into the adult world and pass it on to someone else. It's just not healthy. So some people look at it from, like the astrology side of things. Some people look at it from the logical side of things. It depends what you're about. You don't have to believe everything everyone says, and you don't have to do everything everyone says. Authenticity is finding what you actually align with intrinsically and trying to find a way to express it in the extrinsic. Belief systems play a huge part in that, as well as, if you want to look at it from a social constructivist viewpoint, whatever your surrounds are, your norms and values, which in your current context will shape how you believe or how you construct yourself. Maybe religion will play a part in your identity. Maybe, your poverty background like me. I don't know. Maybe if you come from a better off area, that might play into your psyche or what you value. For example, using a previous example, some people are just happy to marry for money. I could never do it because I was, I say raised romantic, but realistically I looked at it, I picked it up from other parts. Mainly mass media, I would say. I mean, there's feeling there, but also I escaped a lot growing up into like movies and stuff. It was my escapism, because the reality of the situation was I was living in a shit circumstances. And media devices such as movies and YouTube and things like that were just a better reality than whatever I was facing in the 3D, in the immediate. My parents are fucking nuts, and we weren't exactly living in great conditions. And then I got married into even shittier conditions, where I was pulling the weight and trying to survive. And so escapism in that form came as a blessing, really. But it also helped shape my belief systems. I don't think I could honestly use someone for money. Just marry them or get into a relationship just because they're rich or something like that. I would be hating myself because it feels shallow. It doesn't feel like there's any substance behind that. To be honest, even if I fell in love with someone who was rich, I'd still be hating myself because I'd feel useless. I'd be like, how dare you have a bigger paycheck than me? This doesn't reflect the effort we put in, of course, because we'd probably be working the same hours, but I'd feel like I wasn't doing enough. That could come from a myriad of fucked up trauma symptoms that have been placed by my parents, but it could come from anywhere. But I'd feel bad because I'd feel like they're doing more work. They might be doing like more hours, or maybe even doing the same amount of hours, but because they've got that higher paycheck or something like that, I'd feel bad because part of me would be going, well, you're obviously doing more work, and it's like, well, maybe they're not. Maybe they just got a different or better job. So I don't know. It's weird to put a finger on it. So upon leaving my ex-husband, so it's not just when I was married. I had no identity growing up because my parents want me compliant. They want to be submissive, so I do whatever they want me to do. Sorry, I'm yawning because I'm fucked. But a compliant child is one who'll get the job done and won't ask questions. And they were authoritarian, meaning, militaristic hazing when it comes to raising a child. If you didn't do what we wanted, we'll hit you like a jukebox and you'll do what we want you to do. Fear tactics were used by my dad and mum, actually. It was all intimidation and getting them to, cornered to do what you want them to do. There was no nurturing side to it. I have no real relationship with my parents because it just wasn't there. It feels alien. Like when my mum sends me I love you texts now, it feels alien. I'm sitting there going, it just makes me want to throw up. Because I'm like, where was this when I was a kid and when we were trying to form the foundationary relationship? It's just, it feels fucking weird now. Just, why are you doing that? And she's like, can I have a hug? I'm like, no. Why would I want to, why? It's weird, and that's coming from your mum. I don't like even being near my dad, quite frankly, because if he's not grossing me out, he's making me angry. Because I'm still stuck in my head, like what they were growing up. There was a big gap when I was in my 20s where I moved out and just cut them off for a long time. And then I went back to try and mediate the situation, make friends again. And the tactics had changed. They'd gone from fear and intimidation to guilt tripping. And being told I'm doing stuff still, well, my dad especially, is like, you're going to do this for us. It's like, I fucking am? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. The tactics have changed, but the feeling remained. It's like, I still don't want to be around these people. And I know they're both narcs because I've extensively researched that stuff, looking for characteristics and just, I don't know, whatever their shit is, it's probably come from their own baggage, from their own family. But do we carry it on? No. Do we take it out on the kids? No. So I had no sense of identity growing up because they told me who I was. When I got married, it was the same deal. He got me at 17. I passed from one set of narcs to another set of narc. And he told me who I was and what I should dress and what I should speak and how I should operate, you know, and he said, we're going to do this, and I did it. And we're going to, you know, and I did it because I wanted to keep the peace. Or because I just couldn't, I didn't have the energy or the fight to fight back, to say, no, I'm not doing that because it's not what I'm interested in, it's not me and I don't like it. Which came into play later on when he gave me the ultimatum about having an open marriage. He said, oh, we have to have an open marriage or I'm going to leave you. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, because I know that would have fucked me up. If I'd agreed to that and then waited for him to bring someone home openly, because I knew he wasn't faithful to me. There were signs, you know, girls' clothes in the back of the car and stuff like that. But the fact that he openly admitted it, and then gave me an ultimatum, that was it. I'm like, right, you fucker, no. That, as I put my foot down there, no, I can't do this, I won't do this, no. I didn't sink low enough to cheat back or anything like that. I'd done nothing fucking wrong. I had just been a compliant idiot, to be honest, for 16 years, because I just wanted to keep the peace, right? That was my ego kicking in, saying, this is fine. You know, you ever seen that meme of that dog sitting in a burning room? It's like, this is fine. And you get so used to it as well. It becomes the norm of being treated like shit. So given that such a big thing about being cornered like that, and given an ultimatum about something, I cannot fathom how it could work at all. I'm just not designed that way to be open to that shit. I know that one. I'm devoutly monogamous. I know that. I've known that since I was a fucking kid. The fact that he's willing to throw away 16 years in order to get his dick wet, for example, was just unfathomable at that stage. I couldn't believe he would be willing to. That snapped. It was such a big thing that it snapped everything, and that started my growth. That started me having to fend for myself and develop my own identity, and that was when I had my dark night of the soul, because I had nothing left to hold on to. There was no rock to hold on to. I just fell. You know, there was no real sense of it's okay because you've still got this to fall back on. My business has failed. I went into debt. I was homeless. Everything dropped. It was crazy. It was crazy couple of years. Actually, crazy. But we need those shake-ups, and people get, you know, fucked up and terrified about what if it never ends. It's like, it'll end. It'll suck, but it'll end. One way or another, right? Is that too dark? I don't know. But that's why they're afraid of change, because they don't want to be suffering. They don't want to face the chance that it might not end. But inevitably, if you want something enough, it'll end. Pain always ends. Everything's temporary. I think it's Buddhists say that. Everything's temporary. Or is it Hindus? I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that a bit more. It's a religious ideology. I'm going to have to look into that a bit more. So as of 4 years ago, I started redeveloping who I was. Now, I had some things to fall back on. I still had a job. That was one thing. I know I had my morals, because that is surprisingly one thing that didn't go away. It was my morals that I stuck to that got me out of that situation. That knowing that I couldn't, well, it's essentially committing adultery, or, you know, being fine with someone committing adultery around you. That kept me going. That was the deal breaker that got me out of that shit circumstances. And he knew that I would react that way. He knew it, and he did it anyway. So he'd already checked out before even bringing that shit up. He was ready to go. Hence, he wouldn't have brought it up. He knew me enough. So I knew I needed to keep, on the level. I got tricked into believing that my ex-boyfriend was anything but a piece of shit. I got tricked into that because he lied about who he was up front. He had stalked my Facebook to find out what I was interested in. I know this because he fucking told me later. And he had sculpted himself an identity that would appeal to me. Sure, I love reading. Sure, I'm interested in this. Sure, I go to the gym. Sure, I go and do all this. Having lived with him for 6 months, it's all bullshit. It was all bullshit. And it wasn't until you actually live with the people who are bullshitting that you come to grasp that you can understand what they were doing and why they were doing it. So he's got no sense of authenticity himself because he's constantly being a chameleon. He wants to shape himself in order to get something out of someone. I knew that I was angry enough from not only the way I was raised, but also from my marriage that I was not going to tolerate that shit. So rage is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's a really constructive thing. I handled it okay. He's still got all his limbs. But, when I left that apartment, because we got evicted, and he wasn't going to tell me until, I went to him, because if you know the whole story, he was stonewalling me at the time and shit like that. Silent treatment is one of the most painful things I can tell you. I hate it. Because it's holding the relationship hostage until they deem you worthy enough to talk about it. And he'd been doing it for weeks and months at that point. So I was just like, fuck you. But, I was that angry enough that I'm just like, you know what, fuck you, fuck this, and fuck everything, I'm out. I took a scorched earth policy. I took all of my shit with me because I'd paid for everything because he didn't pay for anything. He didn't think he should have to. He had that weird sense of entitlement. I had the job. He had 2 days a week working online. And so because I was the bigger earner, apparently I have to pay all the bills. He's a piece of shit. Meanwhile, he's like cheating on me in the background. So yeah, you can imagine. Was I impressed? No. So I took everything that I had paid for, which was the majority of the shit in the house, which reflected visually how little effort he'd actually put into us, which didn't impress his fuck girls. So, because all the shit he was trying to impress them with, including the foods and drinks and shit I had bought, which he was bringing them home to use while I was at work, I had bought, so I took it with me. I mean, I don't even drink at this point. I didn't want him to have it. So I didn't even drink. You know what I did? I took all the booze that I was going to give to him and I gave it to my brother. Because Joe's good. I don't know if he'll drink it because he doesn't really drink himself, but he's got it now, so I'm like, fuck it. Fuck him, fuck that. You don't get this nice stuff. I was really angry by that stage, and it was slightly petty because I know he's an alcoholic, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I paid for it. I get to decide what happens to it. Fuck you. Go entertain your whores with something else. Yeah, he hasn't got a leg to stand on. But you need to utilize that anger. If you ever come across such shit circumstances, and it's that fire, that oops, there goes my cans. That internal fire, that anger, that will help you shape what you are. I mean, don't go negative with it. Don't be destructive with it. Unless it's like constructively destructive. For example, taking all the shit in the house. I broke down what I was creating because I was trying to create a home with him, to be honest. I wanted a husband. I was aiming for a long-term relationship. He was looking for a fuck buddy. So I had been pouring myself and all my resources into trying to make this home. You want the home. You think if you make a home, it will reinforce the relationship. You can build from there, right? You set the foundation. You're building. He was just there to use the resources and fuck around. I can tell that because he never poured anything in himself. Everything was a fucking chore. Spending time with me became, by his words, a nightmare. And it's just, I became the enemy because he lost interest, just like my ex-husband had done, and he was going after some 20-year-old at the local pub, if not several. So it's just like, fuck you, guy. I'm taking all my shit and bouncing. Fuck you. So it was destructive in a sense, but it was also constructive because I took all my resources. I gave it to people who I actually thought deserved it. And I just stripped it. And I started again in a different location. I blocked him. And now this ability to actually strip down stuff, not be afraid of change and stuff like that, has become part of my identity. I'm not afraid to make the cuts where I need to make the cuts. If it's not working, then we make the fucking cuts. Whereas before, when I was married, it took me 16 years just to stand up for myself. Even though I knew all this fucked up shit was going on, I couldn't bring myself to face the fact that, you know, these horrible experiences. This person who I loved, or I thought I loved, I suppose I did love, but it's a mixed thing. Who I loved, who was supposed to be looking after me, who was supposed to be, you know, my partner in crime, would actually do these horrible, treacherous things. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to face it. And that melts into all kinds of other things, you know, it's like my self-esteem, my inability to let go, me actually choosing my own, you know, abuser, funny enough. Whereas when it's your parents, you can't really choose because you're just stuck in that situation. And if you run away, they'll drag you back. Which my parents threatened to do at one stage, actually, because they're that kind of nurturing soul. If you run away, I'll drag you back. Yeah, I remember that. 16, yeah. My parents are assholes. But, you know, you need to stand up for yourself. And that's part of authenticity as well. It's standing up for yourself to say, this is not what I believe, this is not what I'm going to stand for, this is not what I'm going to tolerate. And we're afraid to do it because it could mean losing something. But you need to ask yourself also, it's like, what are we willing to lose? It's like, is it worth actually having? So it's also a case of regulating yourself. It's like, what doesn't work anymore? Is it worth getting rid of? Which is, it can be liberating because in a lifetime, you just gather a shitload of clutter. It's you know, what's that woman that holds up, you know, books, and she's on Netflix or something like that. I think she's Japanese or something like that. It's like, does this bring me joy? I laugh my ass off because I go around picking up random things at work and saying, does this bring me joy? No, I'm still at work and I suck. So, yeah, it sucks. I've forgotten her name. I think it starts with an M. But in your life, you need to at least, you know, periodically look at what you're doing or what you're associated with and say, does this work? Is it bringing me joy? Is it making me happy? Sometimes you can justify being attached to it because you don't really have a choice. If you're stuck in a job, but you need that job to perpetuate, you know, having somewhere to live and stuff like that, you might have to keep that going. But you could also be looking for other ways to, you know, change your circumstances as well. Because if it's not working for you and you're not feeling well in it, you don't feel like you want to belong to it, then or if it's giving you trauma, like my ex-marriage did, then it's clearly time to start making changes and cutting out the shit. Otherwise, you're just going to impact yourself and feel shit about your whole circumstances and stuff like that. And it will snowball. I've done it before. It just snowballs. It starts with one small thing that's a bit shit, and then everything else snowballs and just collects and fucks everything else up. So authenticity counts, and particularly when you meet someone up front, like even when dating. Like my ex-boyfriend lied about who he was and what he was interested in order to get in my pants. That's a clear, and he's done it several times over, I'll bet. Because all these relationships just sort of end abruptly and the girl goes, oh, this is shit, and leaves. Or leaves with someone else. But you've got to be honest about who you are up front and what you want up front. Because if you're not, at some point the ball's going to drop, the mask is going to fall, and they're going to know who you are and what you're about. You might as well be honest up front about your values, just like what you're willing to contribute, what you want to do. If you can say blatantly, this is me, this is what I'm about, and they still stay and want a part of it, not in a codependent kind of way, but in a kind of, okay, I realize that and I accept that and this is an okay exchange, because I've got this shit, maybe, I don't know, we've all got trauma, then it feels more honorable than, you know, lying about who you are and trying to up-talk yourself to this person who's inevitably going to find out that you're full of shit. It's like, it's fake it till you make it, but you never fucking make it. You shouldn't be faking it in the first place, you know? You should be honest. Otherwise, things just fail because you lied about what you are. You don't really have the qualifications to fulfill the position. I would rather take the time out and work on myself, have the qualifications, than try and build with someone. Otherwise, it's a nightmare. You're stuck in a situation that you don't want to be in inevitably, and it just falls to shit. And you're stuck at square one again because the ingredients you chose to make your shit pie turned out to be shit. So, yeah, so that's a useful analogy. Right, I'm gonna have to leave it there, guys, because I gotta walk into class. I got 5 minutes to get to my first class. I'm hoping you have a fantastic Thursday. I'm gonna do another one on the way back, hopefully. I've got a whole list of ones that I need to do. It's nearly Friday, so let's just keep it upbeat. I hope you're actually living your authentic self, and if you haven't found your authentic self, I hope you find a way to express it from the intrinsic values that you've got inside yourself, because that's what intrinsic means. Have a great one, guys, and I'll see you later.